Have you ever noticed how some men feel invisible in their own homes? Not in the obvious way, no shouting, no arguments, but quietly unseen. Like a shadow slipping through the walls. It's happening behind smiles, casual everything's fine remarks, and routines that look perfect from the outside. And the strangest part? The solution is almost embarrassingly simple. Too simple for most people to believe. Picture this: a man wakes up every day, carrying the weight of responsibility, juggling endless demands and facing constant pressure. He comes home hoping for refuge, and instead, he finds tension waiting for him like an invisible trap. This isn't about huge fights or dramatic betrayals. It's the small, unnoticed things that slowly eat away at him. What if I told you that the difference between a man feeling alive or completely drained comes down to just 5 basic human needs? Simple, attainable, and yet shockingly, most wives won't even try to meet them. Because ignoring these needs isn't always cruelty, it's unconscious. A pattern most people repeat without realizing it. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. And that's just the start. The very first need, what seems almost too small to matter, holds the power to change everything. But few women ever understand it. The first need is peace. Not a fancy vacation or some grand gesture. Real quiet, everyday peace. Imagine walking through the door after a brutal day, expecting calm. And instead, you're met with tension, arguments over nothing, silent judgments, rolling eyes, criticism disguised as advice. That's not peace. That's a trap. Men carry invisible armor all day, handling pressure, solving problems, keeping themselves together. Home should be the place they finally get to take it off. A safe harbor, not another battlefield. Yet most women unknowingly turn their homes into war zones. Here's the dark psychology twist. Chaos doesn't just frustrate him, it slowly rewires his desire to connect. Each ignored need, each tense moment compounds. He starts retreating, not loudly, not rebelliously, but quietly. Physically present, but emotionally checked out. And the scary part? When peace is missing, other needs can't even exist. Respect, appreciation, intimacy, all of them crumble without it. But very few realize this until the damage is already done. The second need is respect. And I don't mean flashy, superficial respect. Real respect, the kind that says, I see you. I value your effort. I trust your judgment. Here's the cruel twist. When respect is missing, men don't always protest. They don't shout. They don't storm out. Instead, they shrink inside bit by bit. Every dismissed opinion, undermined decision, or subtle criticism slowly erodes his confidence. And when you start eroding a man's confidence, you're not just hurting him, you're quietly destroying the relationship. Dark psychology often hides in tiny, unnoticed actions. A sarcastic remark, a sigh of impatience, a look that says you're inadequate. On their own, they seem harmless, but together they form a trap. The man who once felt capable and alive begins to feel invisible. And here's the best-kept secret: respect, when given sincerely, works like a reset button. He becomes alert, engaged, motivated, not because he has to, but because he feels seen. The irony? Many women assume respect is automatic. But it isn't. It must be given, nurtured, maintained. Neglect it and the silent spiral starts. The third need is appreciation. Sounds simple, right? And that's exactly why it's so dangerous when it's missing. A sincere thank you for the little things, the unnoticed labor, the invisible sacrifices. That's all it takes to make a man feel alive. But here's where the dark psychology creeps in. Many women unintentionally train their men to give endlessly without acknowledgement. Over time, gratitude disappears and effort becomes invisible. He fixes things, solves problems, provides stability, and it vanishes into the void. No recognition, no warmth, just silence. This absence doesn't just hurt, it changes him. The man who once tried to impress, to go the extra mile, stops. Why bother when giving isn't seen? The spiral begins, effort fades, intimacy thins, and the home becomes lifeless. And yet, appreciation is easy. A word, a gesture, a glance that says, I notice you, I value you. But withholding it turns love into a contract, not a connection. And he retreats quietly, emotionally. The harsh truth? Many women don't even realize they're guilty. They assume love is obvious, effort is invisible, and appreciation optional. Ignoring it triggers a chain reaction. What comes next? It can quietly destroy even the strongest bond. The fourth need is intimacy. And no, I'm not just talking about sex. It's the feeling of being chosen, desired, needed. That quiet electric confirmation that says, "You matter to me. I want you." But dark psychology hides in neglect. Withholding touch, affection, or even simple closeness turns love into a contract. The man who once felt alive next to his partner starts associating connection with risk. Risk of rejection, risk of judgment, risk of emotional pain. Each avoided hug, each cold shoulder, each postponed moment of closeness adds another brick to the wall between them. Here's the cruel paradox. The act meant to bring them closer instead pushes him away. He stops trying, not because he doesn't care, but because self-preservation kicks in. Emotional survival becomes stronger than desire. Yet intimacy, when restored, can reverse the spiral. A touch, a glance, a sincere "I want you" can crack those walls. But most women never realize how powerful or fragile this need really is, until it's almost too late. Neglecting it quietly destroys everything. The fifth need is emotional stability. Simple, right? Yet its absence can be devastating. Men crave a partner who doesn't weaponize moods, who doesn't turn small problems into emotional earthquakes. They need someone whose presence reassures rather than destabilizes. Dark psychology often hides as drama, intensity, or so-called passion. A sudden outburst, a silent treatment, an exaggerated reaction. Each one teaches a man home is unsafe. He treads lightly. He hides his feelings. He stops trying. Over time, love isn't lost. It's barricaded behind survival instincts. Emotional stability doesn't require perfection. It just requires awareness, restraint, and the willingness to treat home as a sanctuary rather than a battlefield. Miss this and every other need: peace, respect, appreciation, intimacy becomes impossible to fulfill. And here's the cruelest part. Many people think volatility equals engagement. In reality, it kills connection faster than any fight ever could. Notice the pattern. None of these needs are extravagant. Peace, respect, appreciation, intimacy, stability. 5 simple things. Yet most men never get them. Why? Because dark psychology thrives in subtlety. Small omissions, tiny habits, and unconscious actions slowly reshape the emotional landscape. A dismissive comment here, a withheld touch there, an unacknowledged effort. Alone, they seem harmless. Together, they form a trap. The man who once opened his heart fully now learns that silence is safer than vulnerability. The cruel truth? Many women think giving more, arguing less, or controlling outcomes is enough. But without understanding these 5 needs, no effort will fully awaken his emotional engagement. He may nod, smile, even play along, but inside, the withdrawal has begun. And the darkest part? By the time it's noticed, years may have passed. Emotional distance isn't built in a day. It's measured in months, even decades. One neglected need can quietly decide the fate of an entire marriage. Here's the hidden trap: manipulation disguised as love or passion. When a man's needs are ignored, patterns emerge. He adapts to survive. She adapts to control. And suddenly, a silent war rages in the home without either realizing it. Nagging becomes a tool, criticism a weapon, withholding intimacy a lever. Each tactic feels justified. I'm only trying to improve him, she thinks. But dark psychology doesn't need conscious intent. It thrives in habit, assumption, and unawareness. Every successful manipulation slowly kills desire, trust, and respect. The man learns obedience avoids chaos, silence avoids conflict, withdrawal preserves dignity. But withdrawal is invisible. To outsiders, everything seems normal. To his partner, it seems like agreement. Yet emotionally, the relationship is already hollow. And here's the twist. This is reversible. Understanding the 5 basic needs isn't a gamble. It's a blueprint. But few act before walls are built. Once they are, every effort feels like an uphill battle. Here's the truth most never admit. Making a man happy is easy. But most wives won't even try, not because they can't, but because they don't see how small, consistent choices matter. Leaving the door open to chaos, dismissing a glance, forgetting to say thank you. Every day, millions of men quietly retreat. They stop sharing thoughts, desires, dreams. They stop seeking intimacy, stop showing effort, stop believing they matter. And the irony, all it would take is a conscious shift. Peace instead of conflict. Respect instead of judgment. Appreciation instead of silence. Dark psychology hides in this invisibility. When one gives endlessly and receives nothing, resentment builds. Emotional walls rise. Love becomes a contract, not a connection. Eventually, even the strongest man, the one who once rushed home eager to see his partner, realizes he's been emotionally abandoned for years. But here's the shocking part. If a woman chooses differently, consciously meets these 5 needs, she can reverse the spiral completely. Awaken desire, connection, trust that seemed lost, but only if she acts before the final break. Here's the ultimate truth. Making a man happy isn't complicated. Peace, respect, appreciation, intimacy, stability. 5 simple needs. 5 actions that can transform a withdrawn, silent man into someone fully alive, engaged, devoted. The tragedy isn't that it's hard. The tragedy is that it's easy and yet ignored. Every unmet need, every withdrawal, every subtle neglect compounds over years. Men don't explode. They vanish emotionally, retreat silently, waiting for connection that never comes. And when they finally leave, the shock isn't anger. It's the quiet realization. He left emotionally long ago. The paperwork just catches up. But there's hope. Awareness is step 1. Honesty with yourself and your partner, step 2. And action, small, intentional, consistent action, can rebuild what's been lost. Peace instead of tension. Respect instead of judgment. Appreciation instead of silence. Intimacy instead of distance. Stability instead of emotional storms. Commit to these principles, and relationships don't just survive, they flourish. Men become the best version of themselves. Love deepens. Desire awakens. And for those willing to look past unconscious patterns, happiness isn't just possible, it's inevitable. Remember, the choice is yours. Indifference destroys. Awareness saves. And sometimes the simplest actions have the most profound consequences.